It's not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I permit it to pass over me and through me.
Holla ballers, it's Preachy! We're doing Blood DK, and as you can tell from that previous intro, I am loving it. I decided to do a commentary in post. I ran a lot of dungeons, a hell of a lot of dungeons, and a hell of a lot of commentaries, and overall I just ended up enjoying myself well too much to actually talk about the Blood DK itself. I was just woohooing and whooping all the way through it. Get rid of your fear. Face your fear. This DK Blood that I'm running on right now is completely DPS geared. There is no tank gear whatsoever, but you just saw I pulled essentially most of the instance leading to the first boss. Pretty much no fear whatsoever, and that's the feeling it gives you. That is the ultimate feeling of just power and just the ability to cope with any situation. I wanted to talk heavily about active mitigation and all that stuff, and we're going to get there to it. But ultimately, as you can see here, it's just a constant onslaught from the DK that just never ever seems to end. You can see the healer there commenting, tanks in DPS gear. Does it matter, bro? Does it matter? Your mana is more than fine. I've just pulled the whole dungeon, pulling nearly 200k DPS, and now I'm rocking and rolling as well. I almost fell into the trap that I try and avoid, which is enjoying the DPS, but the DPS is so stupidly high, it's hard not to enjoy it and just really take some glorious satisfaction that you're doing something that you don't really see in high-level dungeons, which is completely dominate. You tend to see this in low-level tanking dungeons. Hell, if I go on my monk, I expect to see me doing 50% of the DPS. Not in a normal heroic. No, 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 I do not expect to see it here, but that's what I saw. It was pretty cool. What am I doing here? So you guys, I did see a couple of threads pointing out that they felt Blood DK threat was too weak for a couple of guys, and that's just not the case. It's all about just charging in head first. You are the Hulk. You're unstoppable, man. Get in there and face it. Get those diseases rolling. Get those blood piles going. Get it going on. This is why I take Roiling Blood and chain pulling mobs, which just makes it the absolute talent of choice while you're running your heroics and getting used to stuff. Really is so cool. Moving on then, let's talk about active mitigation and what is it all about. They're trying to get all the other tanks into essentially what the DK model has been for a long, long time. And it's been a long time coming because the DK has suffered over the last few years since Wrath of the Lich King. And pandas are still not quite there, the old brewmasters. They're really just not quite there. And it might take us a couple of expansions. It might take a couple of years before the pandas really find their place. Right now, everything has been leading up to this moment for the Deathknight. Since its inception in Wrath of the Lich King, it's all been moving towards this point where we can now see the other tanks trying to copy essentially what the designers had in mind for the Blood DK. And that is this idea of active mitigation. What is active mitigation? This is the idea that we have choices to make. They removed threat essentially from a choice or a process we needed to follow to do maximum threat. They kind of moved away from the idea that threat should be something we really, really worry about. And they couldn't think of really anything to pair that up with. So through Cataclysm, I think it's safe to say, we were in this mode on all tanks where essentially we were just waiting for that one big hit from the boss, and the rest of the time we were sort of drooling on our keyboard, waiting for something fun to happen. Well, it didn't quite work. Tanking in Cataclysm was essentially the worst period of tanking, I would like to say. It was never really fun. It was never really enjoyable as much as I would say. It was pretty arbitrary fact that a tank needed to be in the raid. But other than that, we didn't make any big decisions. At Madness of Deathwing, everybody was like, ooh, Impale hits for a really large amount. How do we cope with that? We really had to wait until the very last boss for just a gargantuan hit to be our choice. Ugh, Blizz, come on. So they decided this time round, let's give the tanks something to think about while they're playing. Something to focus on, something to play with. And that was active mitigation. Active mitigation is the idea that we can decide to either be offensive or defensive depending on our circumstances. And the Blood DK fits this mold perfectly, as it was designed with this in mind very early in the game. It was given arbitrary cooldowns and a combination of unique cooldowns that allowed them to cope with many different situations all at once. And by doing that, they allowed them to really, really enhance their abilities now in Mists of Pandaria and start bringing the other tanks up to there. The designers thought, you know what, this active mitigation idea is actually really cool. And it gives tanks something to think about, something that was lacking throughout most of Cataclysm. Let's try and move the other tanks to there. Well, while they're moving the other tanks up, this allows the DK to shine. It allows it to be a really colossal force in the tanking area, and I look forward to it having its bright day in the sun, as it's deserved it. It's been left behind for far too long. True, there are some purist Blood DKs out there who've been Blood DKs since their inception, and I've always kind of felt, honestly, that if there was another tanking class here, they could do the job better. And that's an awful feeling. It's a truly awful feeling to think that, hell, if somebody else came along right now, they would do this much better than I am. And that's terrible. That's really bad. That's never fun. Not so much anymore. Now we're in this wonderful situation. The combination of cooldowns is what makes this most fun. I'll talk about Deathstrike shortly. But we can deal with any situation. We need some flat damage reduction right now for a big burst. We've got our Icebound Fortitude. Have we got a constant incoming damage that's really dangerous to us? We've got Bone Shield to mitigate that. Is this heavy magical damage coming in? Is it a dot? If it's a dot damage, hell, I can use my Unglyphed AMS to really cope with that. Is it a one large magical burst? I can use my Glyphed AMS to cope with that. I've got Vampiric Blood. Do I need straight up more health? Cool. Do I actually just need more healing over a period of time? Glyph that Vampiric Blood. We have a combination, when you mix it together, about 13 or 14 different ways of using our cooldowns. No other tank can attest to that kind of power. The Feral Druid, the Guardian Druid, is almost there. Given the fresh breath of fresh air that the Guardian Druid has really brought them into line with what a DK is like, and it's looking pretty damn good in that respect. It's looking really nice. But the DK has been there since the beginning. It's been refined, it's been honed, it's been totally worked on, and the design changes have been minor. We have a slight issue with diseases. Okay, let's fix that with some nice Scarlet Fever. Maybe a lower cooldown on Outbreak, which didn't quite work out in the end, so we tweak it little bits here and there. Baby steps. Absolute baby steps. Now let's talk about Deathstrike, the king of the active mitigation. Not only does this base itself off the damage we just took, which then makes tanks think, did I take a big hit or is a big hit coming? These kind of the thought processes that we didn't have in Cataclysm, where we were just spamming Deathstrike. Sure, some really active tanks were trying to work this into their model with Blood Shield calculators and so on and so forth. But ultimately, you could spam that Deathstrike and get pretty much the same results. Now it's really more focused on, hey, you know what? You need to think about this. You need to think, hey, do I need this huge Blood Shield coming up? Am I about to take a huge hit so I can generate a massive heal? I want my Deathstrike to land at the perfect moment, and overall my damage taken will be much, much reduced because of this small thought process that makes tanking so much more interesting than it ever has been before. With the use of Deathstrike not only healing us, but then giving us a shield in order to prevent further damage, we can make really precise thoughts and processes and calculations over what we're going to do next. And that means we just cope. We adapt. We're very Darwinian. We decide how we're going to flow through our fight. Be it a boss fight, through heroics, through trash. It doesn't matter. We have something to counter every situation. And that's something a lot of tanks lack. We see tanks like Warriors, brilliant mobility, but suffer a little bit in elsewhere. Paladins, able to cope overall, in general, pretty good. Guardian Druids, able to cope with immense amounts of physical damage with ease, but suffer a little bit when it comes to really heavy magical fights. It's just not the case with the DK. You add in the combinations of Meta Gems and Rune Forging, the combinations you can do with your DK in order to deal best with every single boss encounter Blizzard could possibly design are almost endless. They really are. Every single subset, combination, mixture of all these different things working together to make you a better tank. This is why the Blood DK is in its golden moment right now, and I hope it lasts throughout most of Mr. Pandaria. I really do, because I'm so excited to see how can this be improved. Are we too high now so they can only come down? I don't think so. I think there's still scope for little tweaks to make it even better. So the ultimate idea is it's very easy to get the basic tanking out on a Blood DK. Get your diseases up. Get your boiling bloods, your blood boils flowing if you're doing some AoE. Am I going to do more blood boils now, or do I need some blood shields and death strikes? Am I starting to suffer because I've pulled too many? That's the decision process we're making now with the Blood DK. And as such, we can really work that into our play and get some seriously good results out of it. Enjoy it, guys. Seriously, enjoy it. Enjoy the rest of this boss fight. That's your Blood DK overview and your gameplay for patch 5.05. What comes in the future, I have no idea, but I think it's going to be pretty damn cool. You take it easy, ballers, and have a great day.